First, I'll welcome you. Most of you know each other, but you never know when someone's new or when someone new shows up. So my name's Candle Summers. If you haven't met me yet before in these mornings or in person on Sundays at PIMC.
Recording in progress.
And so it's just really nice that we all come together of all ages and ethnicity and our various cultural heritages and religious backgrounds that we grew up with so many years ago, and we find ourselves as adults in a different path usually, and the socioeconomic differences and abilities, our sexual orientation and our gender identities, that just welcoming everyone to study together and to practice this path for the benefit of all beings and for this living earth, and recognizing the suffering that's caused by biases and prejudices to systems of power that privilege that have oppressed many of these categories that I just mentioned, and that we aspire to do no harm and to dismantle barriers that cause separation and suffering. And we start with this right here in our very own hearts of non-harming. And just acknowledging, taking a moment to acknowledge the indigenous peoples that inhabited the lands that we are now sitting on. We come from different parts of Oregon and different parts of the country. And just taking a moment, recognizing that these communities of many diverse Native peoples continue to live and work where we are. And we respectfully acknowledge and honor the indigenous communities, both in the past and the present and the future. Grateful for their ongoing and vibrant presence. And also great appreciation to the various immigrants from Buddhist countries that arrived here, bringing us so many different approaches to the practice of non-harming, of understanding impermanence and the non-personal, and really seeing clearly where suffering stems in our hearts. And Jim and I were just talking this morning about how quickly things change, how impermanence just arises at any moment, and giving the example of people that we've lost recently. We might want to hold in our hearts those that have seen more suffering than others. Some have passed away, those that are in pain, and just holding in our hearts kindness and compassion for those close to us and those further away as well, which we can develop in our regular practice, and we can carry it into our daily practice. But I thought I'd start also with my book that I sometimes read from in the mornings. It's the Poetry of Impermance, Mindfulness and Joy. And it's edited by John Brehm. And it's a variety of poems from all kinds of different people. And the first section of it is on impermanence. So I'm just going to open it up and read a couple short ones. The first one, surprisingly enough, is Robert Frost, 1874 to 1963. Nothing gold can stay. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold, her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down today. Nothing gold can stay. James Schuyler, 1923 to 1991. Beside me in this garden are huge daisy-like, why not? Are not oxydaisies a chrysanthemum? Shrubby and thick-stalked, the leaves pointing up, the stems from which the flowers burst in sunbursts. I love this garden in all its moods, even under its winter coat. Of salt hay, or now in October, more than half gone over, here a rose, there a clump of aconite. This morning one of the dogs killed a barn owl. This morning one of the dogs killed a barn owl. Bob saw it happen, tried to intervene. The Airedale snapped its neck and left it lying. Now the bird lies buried by an apple tree. Last evening, from the table, we saw the owl, huge in the dusk, circling the field on owl silent wings. The first one ever seen here, now it's gone, a dream you just remember. The dogs are barking, in the studio music plays, and Bob and Dara paint. I sit scribbling in a little notebook at a garden table, too hot in a heavy shirt in the mid-October sun, into which the Korean mums all face. There is a dull book with me, an apple core, cigarettes, an ashtray. Behind me, the rue I gave Bob flourishes. Light on leaves, so much to see. And all I really see is that owl, its bulk, troubling the twilight. I'll soon forget it. What is there I have not forgotten, or one day will forget? This garden, the breeze, in stillness, even the words Korean mum. That certainly gives us a sense of impermanence. Well, I think I'll find one more. Let's see what this one is. Ellen Bass, 1947. If you knew, and Ellen is still alive. What if you knew you'd be the last to touch someone? If you were taking tickets, for example, at the theater, tearing them, giving back the ragged stubs, you might take care to touch that palm, brush your fingertips along the lifeline's crease. When a person pulls their wheeled suitcase too slowly through the airport, when the car in front of me doesn't signal, when the clerk at the pharmacy won't say thank you, I don't remember they're going to die. A friend told me she'd been with her aunt. They'd just had lunch, and the waiter, a young man with plum black eyes, joked as he served the coffee, kissed her aunt's powdered cheek when they left. Then they walked half a block, and her aunt dropped dead on the sidewalk. How close does the dragon's spume have to come? How wide does the crack in heaven have to split? What would people look like if we could see them as they are, soaked in honey, stung and swollen, reckless, pinned against time? So may we carry some of these thoughts of impermanence. It kind of gives us for me, an encouragement of the importance of practice, because we never know. And the importance of practice right here in the here and now and daily life of whatever's happening. And the importance of sometimes the phrase is practicing with your hair on fire. As we get older, we don't always have that attitude about practice. But may we take this time right now to be in this moment, alert and aware, listening to the sound of the bell, calling us to the Dharma, calling us to this present moment. Bringing us to our familiar place of practice, settling into our cushion or chair or seat. Noticing sensations. Noticing sensations at each of the sense doors. We have the pressure of our seat on the seat, our buttocks on the chair. We can feel our feet on the floor, perhaps. We might notice where our arms touch. And in mindfulness practice, we want to be present for the very sensation without really having a perception of what we like or don't like about it. We're just noticing pure sensation, heat, coolness, roughness, smoothness. Something might feel jagged. We're just present with what comes to the fore. All of our world is made up by these conditions coming together, arising and coming to us from any of these sense doors. The sense of touch. We can return to the buttocks on the seat or our hands where they're positioned when we find the mind wandering, or we find ourselves lost in thought. We can just return to the present moment by using this touch point. Or we can use the breath. Wherever is your familiar object of returning to for reawakening when you get lost. Without shame or judgment, we would just return to a single object of the breath at the nostrils or the belly or the touch point. Sometimes as we're sitting or even as we're in our daily lives, we get surprised by sound coming to the ears. So wherever you find yourself, you may notice sounds far away or sounds close up. Without grasping on to naming them, just the purity of sound arriving at the ear door. And we have each of the other senses that informs our world. Seeing, we might have our eyes gently closed. There could be internal seeing. Or if our eyes are gently looking ahead, there might be light coming in. Sensations arriving at each of the sense doors. Tasting, smelling, touching, and there's the door of thought, the thought door. So we have each of our senses to give us information for being in the present moment. And we can settle on a single object of the breath or the touch point, or we can let the attention be a little more open and just notice what comes to each of the sense doors with mindfulness, with awareness in this very present moment, knowing directly what is arising. Because that gives us a window into impermanence. What are we aware of? What do we notice when we're present in this very moment? We might notice something beginning, the middle of it, and the end of it before it passes. And seeing this constant changing nature of whatever is arising really gives us insight into the nature of our own suffering. That when we grasp onto something, we may notice we get uncomfortable. We want more of something good. We want to push away something that's not so great. And seeing this clearly brings such joy to the practice because we're there in the moment, seeing clearly, opening to one mindful, free moment at a time, continuing continuity of practice, continuing to string together these moments of mindfulness. If we find ourselves lost or confused or forgetting where we are, or maybe drifting off to sleep, or not really able to be in the present moment, we can just wake up right then and there. We can ask ourselves, what is the attitude of the mind? We can just be present in beginning again, noticing as soon as we can whether whatever we're noticing is pleasant or unpleasant, or maybe we can't tell that Vedana, the feeling tone of what's happening, without attaching the addition of greed or aversion onto it. We can just notice whether something is pleasant or unpleasant. It brings mindfulness to the fore. It brings wisdom to the fore to really notice if what the mind is inclining toward is skillful and useful and helpful, or whether we can incline the mind toward letting go of what's unuseful and embracing some of the more skillful states of mind. Kindness for ourselves, compassion for ourselves, noticing joy or equanimity. And just beginning again each time at the breath or the touch point or one of the sense doors. Using just enough effort to stay interested. Not overly efforting, but having interest. Mindfulness can see clearly with equanimity there to just see what's arising. Some things are challenging, difficult emotional states. Some things are joyous and pleasant. All of it is seen with mindfulness, awareness, and wisdom. keeping the breath in mind, returning to the present moment. Each time we wake up in the moment, is an awakening. Just this present moment, non-attachment, non-harming. We can see clearly that nothing is permanent, that we can't hang on to. Whatever might have arisen has now passed away. We can't really identify with it as me and mine. And those moments of being present can be moments of great joy, of freedom, a little touch into the understanding of anicca, anatta, dukkha, that what comes to us from these sense doors is conditioned. Conditions arise in this present moment. They stay for a certain amount of time, and then they pass away, arising and passing. And we have this breath as the closest thing to us that is with us all the time, to touch back into anytime we seem lost or confused or unaware. We just return, keeping the breath in mind, keeping mindfulness at the fore. As we continue opening to this gentle awareness in the present moment, we may notice things have changed a little. Our breath is often a little more refined, sometimes even imperceptible, as we allow this open presence, this open awareness to fill our bodies, relax our minds. Just touching upon this from time to time and nurturing in our hearts a kind of non-harming for ourselves. We can notice, allowing ourselves to be relaxed and at ease. Encouraging a sense of goodwill. If you're familiar with some of the phrases of the metta practice of loving kindness and like those phrases, you can employ them, or perhaps it comes to you just as a feeling sense of just holding in this cauldron of our bodies and our hearts the inclusion of well-wishing, of kindness to ourselves, and opening that also to others. May we begin with ourselves, or a close friend, or a benefactor, however it's easiest for you to hold in your heart a being. Maybe it's a child or an animal, eliciting a sense of goodwill, of kindness. May I or you be free from harm, safe and protected, and have ease in our lives. Holding yourself in this kindness, holding another person, a close friend, or a being that you've derived great benefit. May you have happiness and the causes of happiness. May you notice moments of joy and hold your ups and downs with equanimity so as not to fall into emotional extremes. May you have contentment. And as we generate this well-wishing, this goodwill toward ourselves, toward others, we can rest in this spaciousness of the heart, whatever that feels like. We can touch into this boundless spaciousness of unconditional kindness and compassion as it nurtures others and returns to nurture ourselves. May we encourage our heart and mind to incline toward this goodness toward others that we don't know. A neutral person or a group of neutral people. Someone in this group that you might not really know. Someone who doesn't speak up much, might be shy, but you've seen regularly in the mornings. Or someone that you passed on the street yesterday in your walk. A homeless person that you passed while driving. Letting this sense of spaciousness in our hearts, generating kindness, well-being, non-harming to others beyond our immediate sphere. And these Brahmaviharas, this metta practice, the first of the Brahmaviharas, is a concentration practice, just as attending to the breath. We're letting our minds focus on a single object, this single sense of open-heartedness, a sense of metta and karuna, kindness and compassion, well-wishing to others as well as ourselves. Seeing this neutral person happy and healthy, having ease, being free from harm, safe and protected. Holding this neutral person in our hearts, wishing them to have happiness and the causes of happiness. And And when things are challenging, may you hold yourself gently. Just as I have compassion for you, may you have it for yourself. And letting this metta and karuna, these thoughts of kindness, compassion, spread outward to others that we don't know, to many beings that we never see, those below the earth's surface and those above, those that fly, swim, walk, crawl. Beings in forests, beings in the sky, beings in the ocean. Beings that are known and unknown, seen and unseen. Those enlightened and those unenlightened. May all beings everywhere have ease and well-being, be free from suffering, enmity and danger, free from anxiety, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we hold this space in our hearts for all beings. And I'd like to close with some words by Sayadaw U Tejaniya about meditating all the time. We must be walking on the Noble Eightfold Path of Sila, moral conduct, Samadhi, stabilizing of the mind, and Panya, wisdom. This particular aspect of meditation, where you need to be practicing all the time for it to be alive and beneficial, becomes apparent to someone who practices continuously. We really need to be a close friend of the Dhamma in order to grow in the Dhamma. It is when we are in such close communion with the Dhamma that we can grow in it. Otherwise, there is not much growth. How can the Dhamma grow in us if we are not always living the Dhamma? The Buddha frequently reminded his followers to keep the Dhamma in mind. He didn't say when to have the Dhamma in mind, but just said to have the Dhamma in mind. Unless we are always meditating, delusion will step in and hold the door open for all the other defilements to move in. People talk about how long they've been practicing meditation, but they are only counting the length of time from their first retreat up to now. If they added up the hours that they were actually mindful, that would be a wholly different picture. The way we usually work is to put in a lot of effort over a small period of time in the hopes of getting some reward. That's greed at work. Right effort is staying in it for the long haul. You need to become familiar with the work that you do, to always be in touch with it so that you become skillful at it. Right effort is not letting it slack off, not giving up, never stopping. Keep going. That's real right effort. Wisdom considers the long term. There's no hurry, but we also do not rest. The more we understand the forces of nature and how they work, the more we begin to rely on the laws of nature to let things unfold in a steady way. It is also not for nothing that I'm using this word nature over and over. When something becomes your nature, really second nature, it means that the momentum of that nature is very strong in you. It becomes your nature. May we be reminded by our continual practice of the nature of arising and passing away, of impermanence. And may we keep the Dhamma in mind all of the time. Anicca vata sankhara upadavaya domino upakitava meruchanti te samvapasamo sukho. All conditioned things arise and pass away, are subject to impermanence. And seeing this clearly with mindfulness brings the greatest happiness, which is peace. Thank you for your practice. Keeping the practice in mind, keeping the breath in mind, it can bring great joy. And may the goodness of this practice be of benefit to all beings. It's so much joy to have you here.